Welcome back to Carneades.org. Today we're going to be continuing with the unreality of time, looking at the final video in our series dealing with objections to the unreality of time. So, some philosophers who accept the A theory of time are generally going to agree with the Ultima C argument because they think that the A theory is necessary to time, but what they're going to do is disagree with the second argument, which claims that the A series is contradictory. Being A theorists, they don't want to get rid of their own series, but they want to show that it's ultimate. Philosophers, on the other hand, who accept the B theory of time will object to the first argument, the Ultima C argument, and claim that the B theory can be separated from the A theory and stand alone and be sufficient for time, but will agree that the A theory is contradictory. We're going to look at both types of objections here in this video. So, we'll remember first that the Ultima C argument can be formulated as follows. Change is a necessary part of time. A B series does not include change. An A series does include change. Therefore, an A series is necessary to time, while a B series is not. Premise 1 is generally considered quite intuitive, but for more arguments on this subject, for and against it, check out my video on time without change. It goes into a cool thought experiment originally offered by Sidney Shoemaker. Of course, you could just read Sidney Shoemaker's paper, Time Without Change, also for a good sense of it. However, a more common way to object to this position is to claim that when we say that change is inherent to time, we don't mean that the properties of the events themselves must change, but rather the properties of the objects must change between instants or between events. So, for example, at point W, at instant W, the internet does not exist. The internet does not have the property of existing, or depending on whether you think existence is a property, that might be debatable. But currently, while you're watching this video, assumedly the internet exists, because you're probably watching this video on the internet. And at the point of the heat death of the universe, the internet does not exist. It seems that change has occurred, even though the properties of the events, being that W is still before V and U is still after V, have not changed. However, the properties of the internet, for example, have changed. And that's all we need for time to work. You don't need the properties of the events to change, but rather the properties of the objects at those particular events to change. Imagine, for example, a plank of wood cut into a very long, thin triangle. It would seem normal to say that the width of the wood changes as you move along it. However, each point on that wood is always going to remain a set width. The width of the wood is not going to change as time goes on. Merely as you go along the wood, the width has different sizes. So if you think that this kind of change, the change like moving along a triangular piece of wood, is all that's required for time, that each moment is going to be different from the last in some way, but that the properties of that particular event in relation to those other events aren't going to be different, you have no reason to need to accept McTaggart's argument. Because for you, at least the B series is going to be more than sufficient for time. However, if you think that time works more like a tube of toothpaste, such that all of the different points have different widths, and you squeeze the toothpaste and those widths change as time goes on, so we kind of have a double change in the sense of not only do you change as you go along the tube of toothpaste looking at it, but as you squeeze the tube of toothpaste, the width of every single one of those events changes, then you will have a problem with McTaggart's argument, or rather McTaggart's argument will pose a problem for you. If you think that time kind of has that double change of both changing in the fact that events are different from each other and individuals in those events are different from each other, but also that time needs to change in some way as time passes, each of those events gains different properties and loses different properties, then, and only then, is the Ultima C argument going to be a problem for you. Now, moving on to the other side of it, looking at problems with the contradiction argument, We might remember the contradiction argument goes something as follows. No event can be more than one of past, present, and future. All events are, at some point, past, present, and future. The A series that uses past, present, and future is contradictory because all events are both past, present, and future, but also not more than one of past, present, or future. So time relies, from the previous argument, on contradictory series, therefore time is unreal. The objection to this part of the argument are going to be less convincing, in my opinion. Generally, they claim that past, present, and future are primitive concepts, which cannot be explained in terms of other concepts. The reason that we need to kind of bootstrap these concepts up and have that circular problem that McTaggart talks about is that nothing can explain them further. They're kind of bedrock primitive concepts that we can't really explain. I always have problems with primitive concepts, but at the end of the day, if you're not a skeptic like me, you're probably going to need some kind of primitive idea or primitive concept in your ontology, and so you might be fine with adding one or two more. However, there may be a more convincing recourse for the A theorist. There's an implicit equivocation in premise 1 between premise 1A, no event can at one time be more than one of past, present, and future, and premise 1B, no event can ever be more than one of past, present, and future. The former premise is going to be insufficient for the argument to work. Any event at one time is only one of these. While the latter is not going to be as intuitive, and most are going to not find it justified, even though it will work for the argument. Now, McTaggart may claim that the thing we need to do to have this distinction is to define time, but the problem is that what we actually need is not a full A series to define this distinction, but rather a C series. Take a look. So the reason this is not going to end up as a circular argument is the only kind of time series that is needed to demonstrate this distinction is a C series, which according to McTaggart is separate from an A series and not controversial. Remember, all we're talking about is no event can at one time, at a specific time, i.e. there exists one time, some time t, such that it is not the case that no event can be past, present, and future at that particular time. Or for all moments t, no event can be past, present, and future. The difference is for all moments t, no event can be past, present, and future for different moments across those moments. There's a different logical concept at play here, and all you need are a set of moments for that to work. To explain the difference between at one moment and at all moments, all you really need is an understanding of the difference between universal and existential quantifiers. So if we're saying that at any particular moment, no event can be past, present, and future, versus at any moment ever to exist, no event can be past, present, and future. All you need is an understanding of the logical concepts here to make that distinction. You do not need a full A series to make the distinction. So the argument isn't going to require the A series that McTaggart is objecting to work, and so we may be able to get out of the vicious circle claim. While McTaggart offers interesting distinctions between the A and B theories of time and the A and B and C series, I've never found his argument particularly convincing. What do you think? Is time unreal? Write your thoughts in the comments below, and watch this video and more here at Carneades.org. Stay skeptical, everybody.